All right, so week 4 of Principles of Business. This is our last class before the end. We all should know that the class ends at 11:59 on Sunday night. So if you need to catch up with on anything, let me know. And if you have any problems, definitely let me know. I think everybody's grades are pretty good. I mean, I don't see anybody who's just bombing. But for those of you who are a little bit light on your discussions, your grade could be much better. And that's my whole spiel about discussions, because they are this one in this class. They're 20% of your grade, so potentially you could gain 2 letter grades if you haven't done them already. So, but if you've done some of them, that'll change. I'm gonna look here. And so we only have one more week of discussions. I had on the last class, we were talking about discussions, and we were talking about some other stuff, critical thinking, and it kind of flowed into each other, which is, I think people don't like doing the discussions because people get anxious when other people read the things they write. They're always afraid that someone's going to think, they're, I'm gonna say, I like to use the word stupid because that's a terrible word, not smart. And they're afraid somebody's, looking at them and going, hey, that's the silliest thing I've ever seen. I don't know why they would write that or whatever. I can promise you that is not happening. That is not happening at all. People are way too far in their own head trying to get their writing done, and they're just as worried about sounding dumb as you are, and so and they're not going to judge you. So don't let that hold you back. It's like going to the gym. You let yourself get out of shape and you hit the gym, and you're always self-conscious because you feel like you're fat or whatever, and people are looking at you and snickering behind your back when they're actually not. They're just glad to see you there and putting the work in. And same thing with these discussions. People are just glad to see you there and putting the work in. Plus, it helps them because they have something to reply to. They have a choice of things to reply to. So anybody who is behind on that, just knock them out. And I will say, I mean, we've got some really good grades in here. Laura's just knocking it out of the park. Diamond is killing it. Aaron's killing it. It's kind of funny. Penny, she's all over it. So, and you always notice that people who, for some reason, who do the best always show up to online class. I don't know if that has anything to do with it or just kind of shows the dedication that kind of spreads out to the rest of their work. But and I do appreciate everyone showing up. We have 3, 6, 8 people here. Let me double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oh no, I should not have marked her down. There we go. So first things first, does anybody have any questions or concerns about last week's work? Any questions? Anything you want to bring up? And this isn't a hard class, is it?
No, and it kind of ties in with the other business class that we had, the communications.
And it's also going to tie when if you take accounting, operations management, leadership, it's all going to tie in. So management, so it all ties in. But the good part is the way we have it set up is those classes, you don't have to take one class to understand the other, and they stand independently on their own, but they do tie in, which everything in business does. Everything ties into everything else. Always, we always say, or I always say, that we're not here to, in these classes, turn you into an accountant or a CFO or COO. What we're here to do is just give you a nice basic understanding of how businesses are run. So if you do take a higher position, where you have that responsibility, or you do start your own business, when your CPA hands you the paperwork, you know what you're looking at. You may not be able to do it all yourself, but you know what to look at and know what questions to ask. And I think that's the most important thing is having enough understanding, what questions to ask of the people who are responsible for things like payroll and accounting and things of that nature. So plus even though I have a lot of experience in, I wouldn't want to do my own accounting anyway. I always like just putting in QuickBooks and then having a CPA look at it and make sure everything's correct. Anybody want to cover any certain chapter right now? Anybody have a preference? Because this week is 14, 8, and 17.
I don't have a preference.
What about you, Laura?
I don't.
Okay.
Now the discussion was pretty interesting regarding that E-gene because I still don't. I'm still against it.
You're still against it. Let's go
I'm
back and
still
look
against
at that.
it.
Let's go back and look at that one because I think that is actually really interesting. Discussions 3 in the E-gene article. And let me share my screen with everyone here.
Yeah, let me mute the TV real quick.
Okay, so I'm going to ask, what is your issue with the article, Laura?
The whole point of they think it's a scientific thing that they tested it and stuff like that, but there's no like logical proof. It's a theory. It's not even a logical proof. To me personally, the whole upbringing and your raising is actually what gets you to go. The motivation for people, the positive influence, the positive out, the boosting people's morals and stuff like that. That's what makes people, I think, an entrepreneur. Giving that positive feedback.
I agree, but I tentatively agree because if you also study many of your personality traits are going to come from genetics, things, creativity, the big five, which I have to remember what those are. And just as a
Well, I've never
warning,
looked at that one before.
just as a warning, I am fighting a headache tonight, so if I'm a little off, I apologize. I took some more medicine a while ago. Just nothing knocked me out yet. I'll take that in a little while. I'm gonna take some Benadryl after we get out of here. So the big five personality traits are openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And many of those traits are genetic. Not that they can't be overcome, but many of those traits are genetic, and entrepreneurs kind of have a combination that steers them that way. Same thing with creative people. There's a combination of different levels of this that naturally creative people have. And I think I talked about that in one of the other classes. I'm not sure if it was anything you have been, but I have a real appreciation for truly creative people because they are special.
Mm-hmm.
And much of that is genetic. But I think, Laura, you're right, but I think there's a genetic component to it. I'm not super creative, not, like an artist or a author or an actor. I just don't have that. And I think that's, I'm kind of pointed in a different direction. And so, and that kind of runs in the family. Most of our people are mechanical in nature, real logical in nature. I grew up in a family, like that. And I think a big part of that is genetic. We have a natural mechanical ability, and we think about things a little bit differently. But like I said, truly creative people, they are special, and I admire them. But always find that if you're the truly creative people that you meet, they are odd cats. You know,
Yes, I am.
you see a leader, you know, like all my tattoo artists, people have done all my tattoos. Uh, you know, I couldn't do what they do, and they're always a little bit different. But let's go back to this. Oh gosh, here we go. Um, so, and entrepreneurship is a kind of an animal, kind of a different animal too, because you'll find that real high performer entrepreneurial types, uh, they in their personality traits, for whatever reason they have them, are willing to put other parts of their life on hold or even neglect other parts of their life for the single purpose of building a business and becoming super successful. And you see that in guys like uh, I hate to go to those standbys, but Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk. Uh, those guys, they're different. Elon Musk and his brother, when they started their company, uh, they just never went home. They slept on the couch in the office.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of people say that um, there's just a certain subset, and most of them are male, that really, really move into that kind of personality, and they're a very small percentage, and because you don't see that usually in females. Females, I think, naturally have different. They care about things a little differently. I know one of the things, it's kind of a generalization, but I found always be true, is, like I said, once in the middle of the bell curve, because you always have outliers on each side. But kind of if you kind of break it down, is men care more about things and women care more about people. And
I can believe that.
if you have like in some of the Nordic countries, and you have a real equitable society, because, okay, let me go back, which is, there are usually two reasons why people choose like certain occupations and go into certain things. And one of them's biological, and the other one is societal. And they found out in those Nordic countries, which they were not expecting this result, which was, as they studied this, and they go to these societies that have taken away a lot of the social pressures,
Mm-hmm.
that the difference in the occupations men and women chose actually spread, you know, uh, and that was, like I said, they weren't expecting that. They were expecting the environmental argument, is that, like you had, Laura, which is, we force girls to wear pink, we force boys to wear blue, boys play with cars, girls play with Barbies, things like that. When they removed that, well, and I grew up in the 70s, so boys did not play with Barbies in the 70s.
I hated Barbies.
Me too.
But
I read a lot.
Yeah, I did too.
I understand that too, because I came from a family of readers as well. So that was, yeah, we read a lot. And but when they removed those social boundaries as best you can, they realized that men still majority went into STEM fields: engineering, science, technology. Women went into, the more the nurturing fields: teaching, medicine, nursing, doctors. We're looking at a point now, I think, in America, there are more female doctors than there are males.
No, that's normal. I think it's
So,
also, because men are basically allowed to go do whatever they want to do. I know my brothers did. And the women, oh, we had to stay at the house and cook and clean and do all the other stuff. No, I disagree with that.
and I
And
think
I
that,
didn't raise my kids that way.
I didn't either.
no, neither did a lot of us. And I think but that's the difference in the time frame we were raised as well. Because I forget how old you guys are, and I don't want to know because it's rude. Um, you know, young ladies like you who are barely 29 shouldn't have to tell me. Um, but
I'm older than you.
I wouldn't believe it. Can't tell me any different. Plus, I've been married for 29 years, so you know I'm not stepping into that booby trap.
There you go.
You ever see the war movie where the guy steps on the landmine and freezes?
Not doing it. Not doing it.
Nope. You're not gonna rope me in. But I started school in I think kindergarten 1976, which was about a decade away from the civil rights movement or the civil rights law that the Civil Rights Act that was signed into law, and so
Yeah, I
things were still
graduated.
different.
I graduated in 77.
And so did you? So you might have went to a segregated school at some point.
Actually, no,
Oh, that's good.
no. Even in like first grade, maybe that one was, but from
You're talking-
second grade on, I never.
But,
They weren't segregated.
but so society has moved on, from between the races and gender roles and things of that nature, or for the most part. There are still a lot of issues out there, but compare it to the 50s or the 60s or the 70s. I think, as I was growing up as a teenager in the 80s, there was the race thing was finally come into some sort of equilibrium, that it hadn't been to before. And I think we've moved forward. And the same thing with, like I said, gender roles, but once again, when you remove all those societal pressures, men and women usually move into different areas. And like I said, that's the middle of the bell curve, because you're going to have women that move into science, technology. You're going to have men that become teachers. Okay. But like I said, go to the middle of the bell curve, you're going to find, and that's the same way with aggression. Men are naturally more aggressive than women. That's why, the population of men in jail, men and women roughly make up half. I think it's 51% women, 49% men, give or take, at any given time. But there's a much larger percentage of men in prison than there are women.
Oh yeah.
And
That's
it also shows up in I hate to use the S word, suicide attempts. More women attempt suicide than men, but more men achieve that goal than women do. So more women try, but more men are successful at it.
I didn't know.
Yeah. So it's, most men are most of the homeless are men. So it's an odd dynamic. But I didn't mean to get off on a tangent, because
It's okay.
I think I'm as bad as Bob about that sometimes. So let's go through accounting, because I think that's a real important one. We'll go through the quiz here. And everybody who's here, if you're not on, face to face, chime in the chat and help us kind of work through these answers, which there are, holy moly, 21 of them. Yeah, we can get them done. That way everybody has this one done anyway. Stockholders typically want to view a firm's accounting information too. Anybody know?
I'm having a hard time reading your screen. It's like not. It's like blurry. There it is.
To know if they have a strong enough return on investment.
On investment, absolutely, Penny. Because if you have a company, you have a duty to maximize your stakeholders' investment. That's usually the number one priority. And the good thing, one of the things is, done correctly in some industries, you're going to achieve quality of service, quality of product, and things of that nature. And that leads in, using those basic principles leads you into giving a return on investment. If you can always shortcut and maybe in the short term give people a good return, but if your business doesn't follow these basic principles all the way through, that will drop off. So good one.
Oh, somebody sounds sick in the background.
That's my youngins. My grandkids are here and they have not been doing such a great thing. They've got a common cold and it's just been awful trying to get rid of it.
Poor baby.
Yeah.
Once again, I'm a guy. I could cut off a finger, roll it around a duct tape, and go back to work. But I get the sniffles, and I'm laid in bed crying like, I have the man flu. So when I had this last little bad of COVID, when I had the Omicron, I was really sick for about 3 days. But I know my wife was tired of hearing me whine. Blank work within their organizations to detect problems such as waste, mismanagement, embezzlement, employee theft.
Work within their review officers.
Revenue officers, no.
Mhm.
Internal auditors.
Oh, sorry. Because they're
That's
working
fine.
through the problems. So it's auditors. They're going to be auditing.
Yep, and they're internal. And when they say work within the organization, remember that's going to refer to internal. Instead of external, like a IRS auditor or a third party that you bring in, consultants and things of that nature. Generally accepted accounting principles, which GAAP are a set of accounting standards that is used in the
I would say preparation of financial statements.
absolutely. As a financial statement, when you get that, that's a snapshot of how your business is doing at that point in time. Okay, and you're going to list, things on like who's had accounting in here? Anybody yet? Okay, so balance.
That's
I'm
my
sorry,
next class.
next class. So you'll look at a balance sheet. Assets are equal to.
Actually,
Well,
I had it at TC back when it was TCC
Yeah.
way back in the day. So
So I'm fighting my headache, so I'm looking for words here. But you're going to look at your balance sheet. You're going to look at your income statement, and things of that nature. So these
General
financial
ledger.
statements are real important. And you want them to be as accurate as humanly possible as well. In the United States, the ultimate legal authority to set and enforce accounting standards lies with the
Securities and Exchange Commission.
SEC. And those guys, if you get on the wrong side of the SEC, that's a bad deal for some of these companies.
Mm-hmm.
Bad deal, because they can find you out of business, just take you completely out of the game. In the United States, the Securities and Exchange Commission has delegated the responsibility for developing accounting standards to a private organization called the
Federal Financial Accounting Standards Board.
Financial Accounting Standards Board.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And that's, once again, you always want your financials to be accurate. You want these things to move smoothly. The major responsibilities involved in financial accounting are the preparation of the
balance sheets.
balance sheet, income statement, and statement of cash flows. Those are the three you're going to see all the time. And if it's a publicly traded company like Amazon, like Tesla, like GE, Ford, GM, those Walmart, those should all be readily available to anybody. They become public knowledge because when they do their IPO, their initial public offering, and they start to sell off stock, then they have a duty to make sure that the people, potential investors, have access to all the proper information. Now, if you're a privately owned company, you don't have to put that out to anybody. That's your own business, except for what's between you and the IRS. But you're not going to share that publicly. In the context of financial statements, blank are debts that come due within a year of the date of the balance sheet.
Current liability.
Yeah, current
that?
liabilities, current liabilities.
And that's what I was looking for. Assets are equal to liabilities plus owner equity. So when you have a balance sheet, they call it balance sheet, the left side and the right side. Left side are your assets, right side your liabilities and owner equity. And they have to, one side has to equal to the other. Okay. If they don't, then something's wrong. Blank refers to a claim owners have against the firm's assets. The stockholders' equity, right? Now, has anybody ever, and I know you've had this, Laura, the difference between a stockholder and a bondholder as far as some of these companies go? If you're, because companies sell bonds just like the municipalities, the government does, just like the federal government does with the savings bonds. I don't know savings bonds. I remember when I was younger, we bought a lot of savings bonds. When I was in the Army, a portion of my check bought me saving bonds every month. Okay. So as a bondholder, you are considered the company is in debt to you as a bondholder.
Mhm.
So they have a debt to you. As a stockholder, you're considered a owner. So if that company ever goes bankrupt, the stockholders are the last person to get anything, and the bondholders are will usually be one of the first ones in line, with the vendors and people you owe money to. So in the case of bankruptcy, stockholders usually catch the bad end, because once everything's sold off, everything's split up, and they've paid everybody they can, there's usually nothing left. But the good thing is, in a publicly traded company, the stockholder, as a normal stockholder, 401k, things of that nature, you're not on the hook for any debt they may have accrued if they do go bankrupt, so they can't come after you personally. In the context of a balance sheet, which of the following serves to be the rationale behind the accounting equation?
A firm must finance the purchase of their assets and the content and
And the owners and non-owners.
yep. Contribute towards it, yes. A firm must finance the purchase of their assets.
That was a weird question too.
Mhm.
That was almost too. The answers were kind of hard to read. You're like, well, what are they trying to say here? Increase in a firm's assets that result from the sale of goods, provisions of service, and other activities intended to earn income are referred to as, easy one,
Revenue.
revenue. And in the end, revenue is what it's all about, right? You have to bring in revenue, and you'll find, like I said, in accounting, accounts payable or a liability. But if you have an accounts receivable, like people owe you money, that is also considered an asset. So when people owe you, that's considered an asset. And that's going to be on the left side of that balance sheet. In the context of statement of cash flows from the investing activities, we'll make this a little bigger if I need to. Yeah, I'm looking at it on a 32-inch screen, so I know you guys may have a hard time seeing it on the smaller screens. In the context of statement of cash flows from the investing activities, Show the amount of cash received from issuing additional shares of the company stock.
Get up here.
Comprise the amount of interest received from the ownership of financial securities. Shows the amount of cash received from the sale of fixed assets, and comprise cash returns from payments of dividends. Anybody?
Shows the amount of cash received from the sale of fixed assets.
Don't think that's right, but we're going to double check that. Oh, you were correct. I was wrong. Way to go, Penny. In the context of independent auditor's report, a blank indicates that the auditor believes the financial statements are seriously flawed and they may be misleading and unreliable.
An adverse opinion.
I bet you work in accounting, Penny.
No. I just did this one already.
Oh, you big cheater. In the context of external audits of financial statements, which the following statement is true of CPA firms. They must be independent of the companies they're auditing. They must have consulting contracts with the companies they're auditing. They can only audit companies that are solely owned by the government, and they are not authorized to provide public accounting services. Well, number D is not, because public is in the name of CPA. Doesn't have anything to do with the government, and so we can narrow that down to they have to be independent. Or I should let you guys answer these, shouldn't I? I shouldn't just rush through them here. The SEC requires publicly traded corporations to provide
A statement of the retained earnings. Nope, I'm sorry.
the
Nope.
financial
No,
statements.
no, no. This is Securities and Exchange Commissions. That's comparable financial statements.
Comparative financial statements. You want to, that's why I said on these publicly traded companies, you have to have these financial statements and have to be public. Like I said, Walmart's one of them. Now, they're not going to provide you with the financial statements for each store, but as a company as a whole, you're going to be able to get that so you can make an informed investing decision. In the context of interpreting financial statements using comparative statements, I always like how they answer the last one with the next one. In the context of interpreting financial statements using comparative statements to identify changes in key account values over time is called
Horizontal
analysis. Good job. Okay, blank or budgets to identify projected sales and production goals and various costs the firm will incur to meet these goals. So it's not marketing. So we're going to go with operating budgets, right? And if you've ever been involved in the budgeting process, that can be depend on the size. Well, you don't have to depend on the size of the company. Even small companies, when you're trying to do a budget, they have different issues, but it can still be quite a bear to go through. Larger companies may have more money and more buying power, but you're also going to have a lot more people vying for the money on your budget. A lot more departments, a lot more people trying to do a lot of things. The smaller company, you're always under a cash restriction, and you have to budget very carefully. Even if you're a successful small company, it still becomes, very important to keep an eye on those. In the context of budget preparations, the cash budget is a financial budget document that identifies.
Short-term fluctuations.
Let me read these. Short-term fluctuations, cash flow source, long-term cash flows, long-term fluctuation, long-standing investment in fixed assets. So short-term fluctuations in cash flow. Because we consider short-term, something that's going, in a year range. Anything past that, a lot of these are going to be long-term. And of course, you're going to budget every fiscal year for whatever that is. Blank is a financial budget and shows how a firm's operations, investing, and financing activities are expected to affect all of the asset, liability, and owner's equity accounts. And I read that and I didn't hear a word I said. The blank is a financial budget and shows how a firm's operations, investing, and financial activities are expected to affect all of the assets, liability, and owner's accounts.
Budgeted balance sheet.
Believe that may be
I just answered it.
So, all right. The opportunity cost that arises when a firm, user, owner, supplied resources is known as a
Implicit cost.
implicit cost. Yes. I feel like, and I know it's not true. I feel like you guys should be able to feel the drum going off my head right now. There's like a little guy with a jackhammer behind this eye. He's killing me.
Is it sinus?
Yeah, it is. What? And I always get like that when the weather changes. Barometric pressure always causes it.
Do you know acupressure at all?
No.
If you will press or have your wife press, because it always, for me, it always works better if I'm having somebody else do it to me. The tips of your fingertips for about 5 to 10 seconds on each hand.
Okay, I'll try that when I get off here.
And it will work. It'll help.
I'll try anything at some point. In the context of managerial accounting, blank are costs that change directly with the level of production. That will be variable costs, right?
Oh, sorry, I just realized I was on mute. Variable
You're
cost.
fine. Yep. Okay. Your fixed costs normally don't change, right? You're going, and they're going to be things like your rent or payment on your building, the cost of paying for your CPA. Those things are going to remain fixed. Doesn't matter if you sell 10 of an item or 100 of your item. So, but the fixed cost, or the variable cost can be anything: fuel consumption, payroll. You may pay fewer people if you're selling less. You'll pay more people if you're not. Same thing with like fuel costs. If you're not delivering as much, your fuel costs are going to go down. So, and they're many times are really hard to estimate, because many of these costs, these variable costs, fluctuate in themselves. And I'll use fuel as an example. You may have budgeted a year ago for fuel costs, but that's not the same as they are now. Or if you would have budgeted back in 2020 for your fuel costs, and then compared to what it was, in 2021 when we had a real price spike, that can really affect someone's business, especially if they're really dependent on something like that. I know in my old company, we were doing horizontal drilling. Fuel costs were a big deal. We spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month on fuel. All our machines took diesel, and so we would come in and use $200-300 of 200 or 300 gallons of diesel sometimes a day, between trucks and drilling rigs, backhoes, and all those other things. Fuel costs that's one I always tried to keep an eye on. Blank are costs that are a result of a firm's general operations or are not tied to any specific cost object.
Indirect.
Direct costs.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we got through this one. So anybody have any questions on that? That was some really basic and simple accounting stuff. but it's actually really good information. And I like, that once again, when you take accounting principles, you're not going to be accountant or bookkeeper, but you will know when things don't look right or what questions to ask. So, and I think that's, in order to be a good manager, run a company, you don't have to know everything about everything, but it's a good idea to know where you can find that information and who can help you with it. So that is that. And we are about 13 minutes early. Does anyone have any questions, comments, anything I can help with? Anybody want anything? I got an awful lot of people here. It's been quiet tonight. Well,
I don't
I'm going to stop the recording, and that will mean the official end of class. And if you need me for any reason, I will stick around. If